What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Sunday night recap presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Simon, joined as always by my beautiful and occasionally frozen co-hosts, Jay, Josh, and John Luke. What's up, boys?
What up?
What's going on?
We got the finger gun and a wink from JL. It must be a special kind of Sunday to get a finger gun from you.
Every single stream, buddy.
Have I never noticed the finger guns before? And you
never noticed
every single stream?
Every single time,
Yeah.
yep.
I'm so sorry. I just get so nervous about screaming at the beginning that I don't even look at you.
What about when you dance with me, Jay? What about when you copy my dance moves?
Sometimes I copy your dance moves. It's usually after the finger guns, like boom, into dance moves.
It's in the game. Guys, welcome in to the Sunday night recap presented by FanDuel. As I said, we are here today to break down the Sunday slate of games. And man, was this a big slate. This was the biggest slate of the season. There was no Thursday night football, no Saturday football, and no buys this week. We had all but two teams in the NFL playing on this Sunday, so we've got a lot to get through today. Before we start, guys, I want to remind everyone watching, if you are watching this, that means you are already on the FanDuel YouTube or Twitch channels. If you're on YouTube, hit like on this video and subscribe to FanDuel on YouTube. And if you're on Twitch, hit that follow button. There's a whole team of incredible content creators here at FanDuel helping you win your leagues and win some money. And hopefully we've got some people in the chat today that can let us know they won their leagues. I'm sure there's some people that know already. But make sure you're following FanDuel on TikTok, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Twitch at FanDuel, on all of these places, Instagram as well at FanDuel, to make sure you're getting all of this content. And Jail, yeah, I would say sorry, but hopefully
Simon's beating my booty.
But I don't want to jinx it. We're not
over yet. Not till 0-0-0 on Monday nights.
ESPN has me as a 50% chance of winning this trophy right now.
You're screwed.
Oh, wow, that's
you're
way better than
absolutely
me.
screwed.
I am 99% to win my home league, but I will not believe it until it's
saying there's a
0-0.
chance. We got C-Rose in here. Hi, welcome in.
That's my niece, Carly. Hey, Carly.
Hi, Carly. Welcome in. And Brian said, I didn't lose. Woohoo!
Yep.
Wow, that's not the Trojan Rose?
No, our punishment for our home league was you have to do in the Waffle House challenge, and he was in that game. So one of my other buddies, Ryan, has to stay in Waffle House for 24 hours.
That's heinous.
Oh, and that's Mom. Hi, Mom and Dad.
Hey, Mom.
Looks like the whole family's here. So.
I saw a league where they have a punishment for last place, and the guys tied. They tied, and they have the Waffle House challenge.
So
and they're like, can we make them both do it? And that's what they're doing.
Yes.
They're making them both do it. They literally, it was decimal scoring.
Oh, geez.
Wow.
Hi, Colin.
Hi, Colin.
Unlikely.
It's crazy. I saw all the screenshots and everything. Like
that's fantastic.
I was blown.
It's almost better than people tying in like the championship, right? Like the
Right.
last
It's
place.
almost better than them carrying in the championship.
Exactly.
Also, Mr. Welcome in. Glad to have you guys here. Guys, like I mentioned, we have a full slate of games to get through today. So I want to jump straight in to the Sunday night football game. And we have a very important comment first, though. Albert coming in. Penny, he's Dynasty wide receiver one. Get it right, Albert. Definitely. Penny, Dynasty wide receiver number one, Rashad Penny on that one. Guys, our Sunday night football game tonight is coming up, and it is between the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers. Josh, do you have our FanDuel Sportsbook lines for this game?
Absolutely. I was looking at it coming into the show. The Minnesota Vikings are 13-point underdogs going into Green Bay. So obviously the Packers are 13-point favorites. For me personally, I am taking the Packers minus 13, and I wanted to get your guys' opinion on this. Me personally, I think the Packers will win 30-13. So the over-under is 41.5. If you do the math, 30 plus 13 is 43. So I'm also taking the over there, but it's close on the over-under. But I really think the Packers dominate this game. So 30-13 for me. I'm taking Packers minus 13. Jay, what do you think? What do you think?
I'm with you. I think the Packers win big, especially with Kirk Cousins out with COVID. I'm going to go slightly under the over-under. I'm going to go 27-10 Packers.
So that make it a 37-point over-under, and it's a 41.5 point over-under, just so everyone knows. I'll just repeat that there. Simon, what do you think here? Packers minus 13?
Yeah, I'll take the Packers minus 13 as well. I'm standing on that side of this one. Without Kirk Cousins, I don't see the Vikings being able to do much against this Packers team. And I'll say it hits exactly. It'll be 30.5-13 final score.
It's impressive.
I'm just kidding. No. I'll say I'll say 20. Man, Jay took the number I was going to say for the Packers. So, Josh, I'm just going to roll. I'm going to roll with you entirely, Jay. Same score, same line, same side as Jay.
Gotcha.
I'm right there.
We're the same person, Simon and I. Not sure if you knew that.
Same hat, same nipples.
Yeah. And just so I let you guys know, I'm actually more confident in the Packers covering the spread than I am with this over-under, to be honest with you. But, JL, what do you think?
Yeah, I will also take the Packers in this one, and I'll say 35-14.
Wow. So JL thinks it's going to be the biggest blow up. So we're all taking the Packers here. That's not great because we're ending up we're not going to be able to do a bet like we did last week, but we did do a bet last week.
Or we do a bet against no one and we either all win or all lose and we all have to pay it out or none of us have to pay it out.
I like it.
Let's make a horse noise.
Yeah. We'll do it together. We'll do it at the same time.
All right, I'm fine with it. I'm feeling pretty good about this. But we did make a bet last week. I think we talked about it going in the show. We were going to pay it up right now.
Yeah.
So the Cowboys.
We need to pick the animal as well.
The Cowboys this were minus 10. Jay and I took the Cowboys minus 10. JL and Simon took the Washington football team plus 10. So they lost. They have to pay it up with making an animal noise.
But not last week.
Oh, I wrote it on the board this week.
Is that horse cold?
Nailed
it.
A
sweater?
Nailed it.
I think you need a sweater.
Okay.
That was horrible.
Simon, really amazing.
I don't know.
It was magnificent, Simon. Don't listen to them, Simon. That was beautiful.
That horse was trying to blow down the Three Little Pigs' house. That's what happened there.
My horse noise gets worse every single time.
The best one was when you bit the apple before. Like, you're not going to.
Oh, yeah.
We got Andy in here. What's up, Andy? Glad to have you here.
What's up, Andy?
Craig, welcome in. Hey to you as well. Coming in out, Beach89 says, Simon, Michigan is bad or Georgia was just very good. I think Georgia's an excellent football team and Michigan was mismatched there. But what a season they had. I think Michigan had a great football team this year, but man, Georgia just dominated them. Albert in here guessing Packers 28-13 is his guess on that game.
That's very close to mine. I said 30-13. So let's go, Albert.
Let's go, Albert. Brian said someone would take that horse out back and put it out of its misery. Probably. They probably would.
Which one?
I think Simon's. Well, yeah, but both. Just take care of both at the same time.
We'll hold hooves while they put us down. Simon.
We will hold hooves. We are going to smush hooves so hard while they put us down.
We're born together and we'll die together.
Josh, on this game though, did you have any player props as well? That I know usually you pick out a couple that you like.
I do. I have two that I was scrolling through the FanDuel Sportsbook. I found a couple that I really like. Devontae Adams, I think he's going to have a big game. He had a big game last time they played the Vikings. I know Kirk Cousins is not going to play this week, but I still think Devontae Adams is going to have over 88.5 receiving yards. I know that's a lot. It's a high over-under, but I see it happen.
Weather?
I'll take the under.
Even with the cold weather, it's not like the cold weather doesn't bother me as much. It's not going to be rainy or snowy. And if anyone can overcome cold weather, it's Aaron Rodgers, right? Yeah.
Also Elsa.
And then I also really like Aaron Jones as an anytime touchdown scorer.
I like that.
You know what? I'll take the other side on the Devontae Adams one, but I'm with you on the Aaron Jones one.
Okay.
If I'm predicting them to win as big as I think they are, I think they maybe commit to the run a little bit more in the second half. Adams probably has a big first half and then not as big of a second half, stays under that total is my thinking right there.
Fair enough.
Also, we got FanDuel in the chat. Welcome in. Glad to have you here, Daddy FanDuel, stopping by to pay us a visit. Guys, are you guys ready to jump
much
into
worse when you say it, Josh.
I don't know why, but it really was. We're going to jump into our first game of the day today, guys. And boy, was it a good game, man. This was such a fun game to watch.
This was the best game of the week, right?
34-31. It's got to be, right?
I mean, there were other close games this week. There were other very good games, but in terms of like just two great teams coming head to head and meeting, and then the underdog actually ended up winning. Kansas City came into this game 3.5-point favorites, and Cincinnati was at home. And Kansas City, the Cincinnati Bengals pulled it out 34-31. This was very impressive. This impressed the hell out of me. For the Bengals, they won the AFC North. They're going to be in the playoffs. I really look forward to this matchup if we see it in the playoffs, because I think it's going to be outstanding. Guys, before I get into the fantasy context of everything here, who is the best team in the AFC right now? Is it still the Chiefs? Are the Bengals in consideration? I think it's one of these two teams, right?
Yeah, gotta be.
If you ask me, I'm still taking the Chiefs. The Bengals were at home. You always give the home team a 3-point advantage typically, like just right off the bat. Like that's 3 points. So the Bengals won by 3 points. If they meet in the playoffs, I think the Chiefs might be at home and they might be able to edge this one out. So I'm going to take the Chiefs still. But
I think you have to consider, like, if we're talking about the Bengals in that conversation, I know the Bills have had their struggles, but I think we have to talk about the Bills as well as a potential best team in the AFC. Yeah. I'm still taking the Chiefs. I'm with you, Josh, but I think then I would put Bills second, Bengals. I don't even know if the Bengals are third. I just don't fully buy into it yet. We've seen some really rough offensive games from them this season. When they put it all together, they have one of the most dangerous offenses in the NFL with an improved defense compared to last year, but I haven't seen it consistently enough. Like, and I know they're a 10-win team now, right? I'm just not fully bought in yet.
10-6. The Chiefs are 11-5.
They're getting hot at the right time, though.
What do you think, JL?
Yeah, I agree with Simon that I think the Bills are in the conversation. I will go Chiefs. I will actually throw the Bengals in slightly ahead of the Bills. Slightly ahead of the Bills.
Hey. Maybe that's a better conversation. Bills or Bengals, right?
Yeah.
Jay, what do you think?
I'm going to go with a team that beat the Chiefs earlier this season, the Tennessee Titans. I still think they're going to get Derrick Henry back. They've been able to do just enough, even though, they've struggled a little bit without him on offense. But now that they got A.J. Brown back, they completely shut down the Dolphins, who've been red hot. So I think it's close between the Chiefs and the Titans, but the Bills, the Bengals are all still in the conversation.
And Albert seems to be agreeing with you down there, saying, what about the Titans if Henry is back? Also, just a quick shout out, Mr. Thank you so much for the follow on YouTube. We really appreciate it. Check out some of our other videos. Let us know what you think over there.
Yeah, and FanDuel said no Jair Alexander.
No Jair
for the Green Bay Packers. So that's a great point.
Yeah, but
great point.
Gotta mention no Kirk Cousins as well.
I was gonna say, I think who's throwing the ball over there now? Is it Mannion? Is that or no?
Yeah, Sean Mannion. I'm actually. We need to wrap this up early. I'm going to play quarterback.
I think Sean Mannion throwing the ball to Justin Jefferson is about the same as Kirk Cousins throwing it to him with Jair Alexander covering.
Yeah, they all
I
don't know. I think I'd take Kirk Cousins probably, but we'll see. I was looking at the over/under for Justin Jefferson's receiving yards. I think it was like 78 around there, and I was like. I almost wanted to take the under, but I just couldn't do it because it's Justin Jefferson, and I know they need him to win this game.
Coming up, Beach 89 saying Bills, Cowboys, Rams, Colts, dream Super Bowl. 4 teams in the Super Bowl would be wild. That is my dream Super Bowl as well.
Instead of a field with just 2 sides, it's like a cross. It's 4 sides.
And it only counts if you get across first, then everybody resets.
Yeah. 11-man offense versus 3 11-man defense.
We talked about how we have to speed through these a little bit. I'm sorry. I brought up the AFC, best team in the AFC, so I'll take responsibility for that. But let's get back to this game. Kansas City Chiefs versus Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals won. You're very happy starting Darrell Williams. You're very happy if you ended up getting him maybe off of waivers even. He had a great game, 14 carries, 8 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 catches for 19 yards. Impressed with him. Patrick Mahomes was solid. You weren't disappointed with him in your lineup, but he didn't win you a week or anything. Completing 26 passes, 259 yards, 2 touchdowns, had 2 carries for 25 yards. Solid game, but you had to be disappointed with all the receiving weapons on the Kansas City Chiefs side of the ball. Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, they just did not have big explosive games. Like Travis Kelce didn't kill your week, but you weren't happy with it. Going into next season, I want to ask you guys this. Where do you think Travis Kelce will rank out of all tight ends? So actually, let's rank our top 5 tight ends. Can we do that? I think these are the tight ends in consideration. Kelce, Kittle, Andrews, Pitts, Waller, and Gronk. And Goddard. Waller, Gronk, and Goddard. For me, my top 5 tight ends would be going into next season. I'm still putting Kelce at the top. I'm putting Andrews number 2. I'm putting Kittle number 3. Now I think it gets a little bit where you could go a lot of different directions. I'm gonna put Gronk as my number 4 tight end. And this is really tough for me too. Between Waller and Pitts for me, I am going to lean Pitts. So Pitts is going to be my number 5 tight end closely with Waller behind. So what do you think, Jay?
I'm with you. I still think Kelce's number 1, and I think Mark Andrews is number 2. These next 3, you could really make an argument for any order. I'm going to put Kyle Pitts as number 3. I think that people are overreacting. He's breaking rookie records for yardage. Jeremy Shockey back in the day. I think if he would have had a couple touchdowns this year, people would be flipping out about Kyle Pitts. So he might even, depending on where he's going in drafts, he could turn out to be a value. We don't know what's going to happen with Calvin Ridley. Hopefully he's back next year, but I think that'll have a significant impact on the offense. So that was Kelsey, that was Andrews, that was Pitts. I'm going to go Kittle and then Waller.
Okay. And then Simon? We'll go to Simon.
Kelsey 1 for me.
Mm-hmm.
Andrews 2. I agree with you there. Kittle 3. I agree with you there as well. I'm still going to put Waller 4. And a big reason I'm putting Waller 4 is because of the way they've used Hunter Renfrow while Waller has been out. That is the Waller role that Renfrow's filling. What? No, Hunter Renfrow. Hunter Renfrow has absorbed
a lot. Oh my gosh, I thought you said Hunter Henry, and I was like, no, that's not the same name.
No, I mean Hunter Renfrow for sure. The way they've used Hunter Renfrow has given me a lot of reason to believe that the second Darren Waller's back and healthy, they're going to start using him in a heavy target volume role again. So he's still number 4 for me. And then that number 5 one is so hard. I think I'm going to go Pitts as well. I love the upside. I love what we've seen from him this year, but Gronk is right there with him. So Kelsey, Andrews, Kittle, Waller, Pitts for me.
And JL? Wrap it up for us.
All right. I'm going to go Kelsey, Andrews, Kittle, Pitts, Gronk.
Kelsey, Andrews, Kittle, Pitts, Gronk. Okay. JL and I were pretty close. We just reversed Gronk and Pitts.
Yeah.
Gronk. All right, cool. There you go. I love it. I'm a little bit higher on Gronk. Jay's a little bit higher on Pitts. It seems like we both have the same top. We all have the same top 2. There we go.
Sure.
So we all still think that Travis Kelce is the number 1 tight end going the next season.
Yeah. Redraft. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, perfect. So Bengals, on the Bengals side of the ball. Wow. Joe Burrow is playing out of his freaking mind the last 2 weeks. What? This has led to some crazy awesome weeks for both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins last week. This was actually the best PPR fantasy game of the season. Jamar Chase just had. In a half-point PPR in a standard league, Jonathan Taylor actually has the number 1 game, but in a PPR league, Jamar Chase had the best week of the season right here.
That's wild.
I want to ask it again, but I'm going to add a little bit of a nuance to it. Going into next season, rank these 4 wide receivers: Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, CeeDee Lamb, and Amari Cooper. So the Cowboys' top 2 wide receivers and the Bengals' top 2 wide receivers. I want to rank these 4 wide receivers. Simon, I want to come to you first.
Yeah, I figured you would. Anytime Amari Cooper or Mike Evans gets brought up in a question, it always gets thrown my way first.
Amari Cooper just scored a touchdown, by the way.
Man,
better game than Lamb.
Part of what makes this tough is that there is an out in Cooper's contract at the end of this season, if I remember correctly. He's still under contract, but there's an out, a way for the team to easily move on. That's how the contract was structured. So we haven't heard many rumblings, but it's not a guarantee that he's back with the Cowboys next year. That being said, I'm not sure how much it changes it. Jamar Chase is number 1 for me. Then CeeDee Lamb. Then this is where it gets really tough between T. Higgins and Amari Cooper.
I love it.
I love both of those guys. Can I just call it a tie between those 2 guys at 3? No, you're going to make me choose. I'll go.
If you had to draft right now, you're drafting.
I'll go Higgins Cooper. There's a little bit more certainty with Higgins' role in the offense he's going to be in and what it's going to look like. So I'll go Higgins 3, Cooper 4. But I think all of these are good fantasy options next year.
JL?
Sorry, it was Higgins, Cooper, Lamb, and who was the 4th?
Chase. It's the Bengals wide receivers and the Cowboys.
All right, I'll go Chase, Lamb, Higgins, Cooper.
So Lamb, same. Higgins, Cooper. Me, you, and come here now, Beach 89 on the same page.
Jay?
Throw one more in there. I'm the exact same order for me.
The same order too, guys. Yep. I'm the same order.
We did
it. What do we win?
I am this close to putting CeeDee Lamb above Jamar Chase, but I just can't do it.
I really thought about it, but I like the Cowboys defense better. So I think that the reason why I was so high on Cooper going into the season, like we've talked about before, is the Cowboys defense was so bad. They've got a pretty solid defense, one of the hottest in the NFL right now. So I can see situations where it's so hot. The Bengals are in more shootouts than the Cowboys. So.
What just happened?
Guys, that was the most in sync thing that has ever happened on this show. Like, you guys became one voice melted together.
All right. So hey, Jamar Chase is going to be a borderline, probably a second round pick next season, but he's going to be drafted really high. Really, people are going to remember this performance.
Receiving yards.
This guy has 11 catches today. And 3 touchdowns today.
Yeah, Dale said today, because that could be someone's line for the season. That could be a rookie's wide receiver yardage total for the season, and people would still be hyping up as a sleeper for next year. And
I would personally like to thank Mr. Joe Burrow for helping me win a championship. It's 99% sure. It's not 100%, but these past 2 weeks, man, he has just been unbelievable.
Unbelievable today. 30 completions, 446 yards.
That's my wife and probably my kids as well. So
last week he had 37 completions, 4 touchdowns, 525 yards. Joe Burrow's playing out of his mind. Joe Mixon had a somewhat disappointing week, but you really can't complain about 7 catches, only 12 carries for 46 yards. He didn't get into the end zone, but it was fine. He didn't kill your day.
Fantasy points, that's fine.
That is it for this game. Let's move on to the next one.
Guys, we are going to move on to our next game, which is the New York Giants versus the Chicago Bears.
We really don't have to talk about this, to be honest. There's not a whole lot to talk about. But Mike Glennon completed 4 passes today. Yeah, so the passing game, there literally is nothing to talk about. I'm going to skip over it completely. The only thing on the Giants
side one of the worst games of the season for a quarterback, actually.
Yep. Well, I also had the Bears in my championship, so I wasn't too disappointed with that. But I know that makes me a bad fan, but
no,
Giants aren't going anywhere this year.
You're rooting for them to lose, so
exactly
at this point.
But Saquon Barkley had a solid game, over 100 yards, 102 yards, no touchdown. But this leads into my only question for the Giants. It's going to be a 2-parter. The first part, what round are you comfortable drafting Saquon Barkley in a startup? And then once we go through this, I've got a little bit of a name game for us. And Josh, we're going to start with you.
Like a dynasty startup?
Yes, a dynasty startup. What round are you comfortable drafting Saquon Barkley?
Team?
Just let's say your standard 12-team PPR.
I'm trying to remember where you went in our last mock draft. Not high. So it's probably going to be like the 5th or 6th round.
Okay. JL?
Oh, 5th or 6th in startup. It shouldn't be that low. It should not be that low. I would say he should be drafted still second round. Second round is where he belongs now. Is where he'll go.
Nope.
See, I think I live right between you guys. I agree with both of you.
No, Texas isn't between Baltimore and North Carolina. Sorry.
Well, it depends which way you look at it. If you go the other way, it is.
Josh and I are both in Baltimore.
If you go north from whichever one's further north,
you're not going to make this work, Simon.
Yeah, it is. If you go northeast, from Baltimore around the globe, you'll hit Texas and then get back to North Carolina. It's between. But that's besides my point. I meant on this take, I'm between you guys. I think he's right outside of those top 12 backs. He's in the 13 to 15 range in Dynasty right now. And so while I think that should push him into the 5th or 6th round, the way running backs get drafted, I think it's probably the 3rd round where Saquon Barkley ends up getting drafted.
Yeah, and I'm with you guys. I'm with you, Simon. I'm more back end of the second, early first. If he's there, I'd be taking him off the board. But let's play a quick name game, and we'll go that same order. Startup. You're in a startup draft right now. These 2 guys are on the board.
Nope.
Saquon Barkley or Ezekiel Elliott, Josh?
I'll go Saquon.
JL?
Saquon.
Simon?
I'll go Zeke.
I'm going Barkley. Gets a little tougher with these next 2.
The 6th round.
I'm going to hope he's going to be on a new team.
Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey?
That was a super flex draft. I guess I was thinking super
flex.
CMC.
Yeah, CMC. Barkley or Derrick Henry?
Derrick Henry.
Barkley.
Derrick Henry.
And Barkley as well. Barkley or Aaron Jones?
No.
Just skipping your pick.
Derrick Henry.
They're both low for me.
Barkley.
I guess I'll lean Barkley.
I'll go Barkley as well here. Can I throw one out there?
No. Okay. Barkley or Michael Carter?
Barkley.
Gross. Yeah. Simon, yes, go ahead, throw one out.
What about Javonte Williams? Barkley or Javonte Williams?
Javonte. I was considering that, but no hesitation, Javonte.
Okay. If we brought up Derrick Henry, I think there are still people that have Javonte Williams below Barkley in dynasty rankings. I'm with you guys, but I think we may be putting the cart before the horse, assuming that we're even only 1 year away from him having the backfield.
Right.
We haven't seen it except when Melvin Gordon's been injured. Melvin Gordon
very easily could come back to the Denver Broncos.
Exactly.
And fantasy Twitter would explode.
It's a 1 year contract, though.
Yeah, it is a 1 year contract.
He's done after this. They would have to re-sign him.
That's what I'm. Yeah, but I think there's a real chance that
it could happen.
Yeah,
I doubt it happens, but it's absolutely a possibility. Obviously.
So that's honestly all that's worth talking about on the Giants side of the ball. On the Bears, Andy Dalton had a typical Andy Dalton game, but Darnell Mooney, Josh, you've been high on him recently. 7 catches, 69 yards, nice, with a touchdown on 13 targets. So it's going to lead into my next question. Darnell Mooney is a top blank wide receiver in 2022. We'll start with you, Simon.
My goodness.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
Daddy FanDuel is going to put you in timeout, Josh, for that one.
Sometimes you got to do it. Sometimes you got to do it.
FanDuel,
you leaned into it too.
Sometimes it happens. Like I'm not in control of what comes out of my mouth. You know? We all know that already.
It's true. That's very true.
Darnell Mooney is a top
2020 blank wide receiver
going into next season.
Top 100.
Next
Jay,
season.
I think you answered it perfectly without even meaning to. He's a top 20 to 22 wide receiver next year.
Okay, that's your answer.
Yeah,
right.
2022. He's about 20 to 22.
Yeah, top. I don't want to say top 20, but like he's right there. You know,
probably a wide receiver too. Yeah,
they might not have Allen Robinson next year.
Back in top 30.
Yeah, I'm more on line with JL. I think more of top 30. I think he's going to have those big weeks, but I don't trust a wide receiver on the Bears offense, especially we don't know. You know, we're assuming Nagy's
going to be.
We see reports that Nagy's going to be gone, but it's an assumption at this point.
Right. And Justin Fields, although he's had flashes, he hasn't been that consistent when passing the ball. So, he's going to go through some growing pains as well.
I'll say top 24 wide receiver officially.
Okay.
Officially.
Make it official.
Official burp.
That was an official burp. Bravo.
Brought to you by FanDuel.
Albert Aaron's just came in. It was a second
top
after
24.
I said it. It was literally a second after I said it.
You know what? And Albert kills it at all the trivia games, so I can only assume that everything he says is accurate.
Albert and I are so similar. Yeah. Like,
he's so close.
Albert's like, you burped after I burped.
It's really not much else to talk about this game other than the Bears defense dominated, helped some teams win some fantasy championships. David Montgomery got 2 touchdowns, had an okay day on the ground, 64 yards, a couple of catches, nothing really to write home about. But, this was just an ugly game that the Giants really won and lost because they also had the Bears pick. So hopefully 2 top 10 picks. So I'm good with it.
So they kind of wanted to win that game a little bit, probably, huh?
Yeah, it works out. Guys, we're going to move on to our next game. It is the Philadelphia Eagles taking down the Washington football team without Antonio Gibson, 20-16. I said without Antonio Gibson, but I skipped the fact that the Eagles were also without Miles Sanders, their starting running back. So the Miles Sanders-less Eagles taking down the Antonio Gibson-less Washington football team. The first thing I wanted to talk about here, guys, was Jalen Hurts. So the Eagles did win, but Jalen Hurts did not have a fantasy day that helped fantasy managers out at all. And this was without Miles Sanders, their starting running back, in the lineup. Some may assume without him, maybe Jalen Hurts takes on more of a rushing role. Maybe this offense has to run more through him. But that wasn't the case. Boston Scott with 14 carries. Jordan Howard had another 11 carries. They used the running backs, the backup running backs, pretty heavily. The Jalen Hurts only threw for 214 yards and only rushed for 44, leading to a pretty disappointing fantasy game with no touchdowns on the ground for him. Now, he is still going into this week, he was the QB6 on the season so far. But we've seen some pretty disappointing games from him along the way. There's been the big games, the 30-point games, the 35-point games. But Josh, similar to some of the questions you were asking, how do we view Jalen Hurts going into next season? Assuming he's the starter, Josh, do you view him as a top 5 starter? Like, where will you be drafting him in order quarterback-wise? You don't have to give me the names before him, but are you drafting him as the 5th quarterback off the board, 10th? How are you viewing this?
Probably
this
more
guy?
like a top 10, but like I'm not going to reach for Jalen Hurts next season. When it comes down to Jalen Hurts, if I can get a really awesome value on him, I'm going to take him. He's a top 10 quarterback. So when we're talking about redraft leagues, I'm not, if I'm waiting on quarterback, he's probably a guy I can take, but if he's going high, I'm definitely not going to be reaching for Jalen Hurts. I love his rushing upside, but he's a top 10 quarterback. There's a good grouping of quarterbacks I'll take over him.
A good grouping. JL, what about you? Are you in line with Josh here or a little bit higher on Hurts?
I am completely in line with Josh here. I feel like I'm not going to get any Jalen Hurts next year because he's going to go too high.
Exactly.
Assuming no big changes in the offseason, but I'm with Josh. I would have him as a back end QB. I don't know if I'm ready to put him in top 10, but if not, he's right there in the top 12.
Jay, what about you?
I echo pretty much everything both of these guys said.
Same. Guys, we've got a question from Albert real quick before we continue talking about this game.
Hate this question.
He wants to know St. Brown or Mooney for next season. Oh, that one's very close.
There is a lot of moving parts for both of these guys.
Yeah. I'll go with Mooney at this point.
I'm going.
Mooney's done it the whole season, guys.
I'm going Mooney, and the reason is, like I've said a few times, I want to see St. Brown do this with Hawkinson on the field, with Swift, although he was back. He didn't play his full complement of snaps. Mooney, I can see potentially being a wide receiver one. I don't see that in the realm of possibilities for Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Man, but the question isn't dynasty. It's for next season. Know what I mean? I don't see either of these guys being a wide receiver one next season. So I'm going to go St. Brown for next season. If this was dynasty, I think I would prefer Mooney long-term, but next year I'm going to go with St. Brown.
I think I would lean Mooney.
Mooney for JL on that one. So I'm alone on the St. Brown side. But guys, I like Mooney too. This isn't an indictment on Mooney.
They're very close.
At all. This is wildly close. That was a great question right there. Guys, the running backs here. Boston Scott, 14 carries, 47 yards, and he had 2 touchdowns on the ground, made his day. But add 4 receptions for 39 yards on top of that as well. He was involved in the passing game. If you started Boston Scott this week, if you picked him up off waivers and started him, you were pretty happy. Though he was not the best running back you could have started off waivers, but we will talk about that guy in a little bit. But Boston Scott absolutely killed it. The one other thing on this Eagles side that I wanted to talk about was Dallas Goddard. So we talked about the other tight ends a minute ago, and I think Dallas Goddard was the name that was right on the outside looking in. Yeah. And what I want to do is I want to tell you why Dallas Goddard isn't in the conversation to crack that top 5 for me. And it's partially what we've talked about already, how this offense wants to run. Even when Miles Sanders goes down, this is Jay, I believe you said it before the show. You said this is a run first, run second, and run third offense. That's how they want to run. That was how you phrased it. But yeah, that's how they want this team to operate. We've seen it limit other quarterbacks and wide receivers in the NFL, the Browns, based on how they want the team to work. And I think the Eagles are going to be similar. And Dallas Goddard just isn't going to get the volume to put him in the category with those other guys. Andrews did break that mold this year, right? The Ravens started throwing the ball more, but I don't view Jalen Hurts as the kind of quarterback that can evolve into a better passer the way that Lamar Jackson did. Lamar Jackson's a much better quarterback. JL, do you think there's a chance Dallas Goddard sneaks into that top 5 tight end conversation next season, or do you think he's near a ceiling right now?
Sure. He's close enough that I think he could sneak into it. I think there's enough competition that at least going into the season, I can't see anyone drafting him top 5, but he's there right on the bench.
Josh, what about you? I see you nodding.
I got something to say here. Mark Andrews. I think he was in a very good last year. You could have said everything you said. Yep. You could have said about Mark Andrews, and this season, Mark Andrews turned it on. And maybe Dallas Goddard isn't quite as great of a talent as Mark Andrews. Maybe that's the case, but I think he's one of the top tier talents at the tight end position in the NFL. They got rid of Zach Ertz. So coming in the season, Dallas Goddard wasn't expected to be the number 1 tight end. It was supposed to be, Zach Ertz and him, because Zach Ertz is a very talented tight end as well. Now going into this offseason, only Dallas Goddard. That's why, when I brought up all these tight ends, I did mention him. I'm not ranking him in my top 5 either, but I think he has a chance to break in there next season. So I might have a decent amount of Dallas Goddard on my fantasy teams next year.
Nice. I don't hate it.
If I can get a value.
Yeah. The only thing is I think Goddard is a worse player than Andrews, and I think Hurts is a worse player than Lamar Jackson. That's the only thing about that.
Andrews is doing it with Huntley and Johnson.
He is doing it with Huntley as well. So, you're right. He's been killing it over there. Jay, where do you stand on this one real quick?
I lean pretty much with Josh and what you said too, Simon. The comparison is there with Mark Andrews and Goddard, but I think the big thing is Lamar Jackson is a much better quarterback, but I think that Goddard will be some value. He's a guy, the type of tight end that I like to target in my drafts. I don't like to go early for tight end. I like to get those guys who are right on the cusp that you can get a value that you can see potentially making that jump. And I think Goddard fits that mold pretty well. So as long as the value's there, I do see myself drafting a lot of Dallas Goddard next year.
Guys, we're going to move on to the Washington football side of this. But before we do that, we have a question in here. Well, first of all, what's up, Mr. Scampers? Welcome in. Glad to have you here. And
so 27% of people must have voted for the Vikings, I'm assuming.
For the Vikings, yeah.
I just couldn't do it. I could not do it without Kirk Cousins.
No, Terry in here said, which wide receiver should I play? MVS or KJ Osborne?
MVS. I am hands off on KJ.
Yep. Yeah, with Sean Mannion in at quarterback, it's MVS for me as well. JL, are you going KJ or are you going MVS?
I'm going MVS.
Unanimous MVS, Terry. So take that as you will on that one. But we would all start MVS over KJ Osborne.
I'll be rooting against Osborne. In the league, I'm fighting for this trophy again. My opponent does have Osborne.
So take that into account, Terry.
Yeah.
consider all of the information.
Right. Osborne.
Yeah.
No, and, just like the you add it up, and it's like no Kirk Cousins.
Right. If Cousins was there, there'd be it would be a conversation. But without Cousins,
I would probably go Osborne if Cousins was there. But.
Yeah.
What if Cousins was there?
Oh, true. Man, the Seahawks scored 51 points. The Seahawks have scored 51 points on the Detroit line. I'm sorry, we'll get to
That's insane. Guys, on the Washington side of this ball, my first question I wanted to bring up was the questions surrounding the quarterback room here. So Taylor Heineke has been the starter for the vast majority of this season. Do you guys expect him to remain the starter at the beginning of 2022? Jay?
I don't. And I came into the season thinking that Heineke was a better option than Ryan Fitzpatrick for the team long-term because we know what Ryan Fitzpatrick is. I mean, everybody loves Ryan
50?
Fitzpatrick. He loves to sling. What's that?
I said 50. We all know what he is. 50 years old about.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah,
he's like 49, right?
Yeah. But you know what you get with him. He's, as soon as he becomes the starter or the guy, things fall apart. He's the guy that you want to be your backup, to come in if you need somebody. He's a poor man's Brett Favre, basically. And you're not gonna, lead a franchise with that. I think Heineke was the better off for them being the starter the majority of the season because they know what they have in him now. I think he's okay. I think he's solid. If this he can't elevate this team. Look what happened with Terry McLaurin this season. McLaurin was coming into the season on the fringe wide receiver 1 territory, and Heineke just wasn't able to get it done. I would not be surprised to see them in the market for one of these veteran quarterbacks, the Russell Wilsons,
Jimmy G.
Right. Yeah. Jimmy G, if everything gets cleared legally, Deshaun Watson.
Or I hate to say it, there's been no decision made on Baker Mayfield yet with the Browns. I think it's most likely
Rodgers,
he stays with the
they're
Browns.
Bringing back Baker Mayfield.
They better. I know. Right? I'm preparing myself for them not.
They could draft somebody too. So I don't think he's the quarterback under center next year. And I think that leans, I don't know if you were getting to this or not, but I think in Dynasty, Terry McLaurin is a great buy low because I think they will upgrade the quarterback position next season.
If you can buy low, yeah.
You read my mind. That's exactly what this was going into. In my mind, I view a changing quarterback situation as not getting worse. At worst, it stays neutral. And hopefully eventually means a better outcome for Terry McLaurin. But that's what I'm hoping for as well. Heineke had some great games this year, but I don't think he's the answer long-term there. Also, Terry in here says, MVS it is. I'm down 22 with Najee and MVS left. Wish me luck. That's a close one. That's a fun one to sweat. That's really a fun championship week sweat right there.
I'll give you it's in between 54. I'll give you a 60% chance of winning this game, Gary.
60% from Josh, and he's always right with his percentages.
Always.
Because if you lose, you're
of the time,
on the other side.
Of the time, I'm always right.
Also, Bam said he won his championship, even with a stinger from AB and Kittle. Winning by 10, and
he's got
won yet. Go, Bam.
Oh, Bam! Don't count your chickens where they at. He's got Devontae Adams versus the other team's kicker.
You got it, Bam. You got it, Bam. You got it.
Get the court ready to pop out.
9% chance of winning that game.
Yeah. Guys, one more thing on the Washington side of the ball. So Jarrett Patterson, I just want to highlight all of the waiver wire running backs that could have helped you win a championship this week. We already had one. Boston Scott on the other side. Jarrett Patterson's coming in here. 18.3 half PPR points. PPR gets even a little bit higher over there. You could say even about 2.5 points higher for PPR. But
Darrell Williams.
Penny. Yeah, it was nuts. There have been
you can throw Stevenson's name in there, I think.
What I did want to bring up, though, was Antonio Gibson. So he missed this game. As a whole, I would say this season was disappointing compared to expectations. But there was a stretch where they were giving him 20-plus carries a game like everyone expected at the beginning of the season, and he showed up. He did exactly what we thought he was going to do. So I think Antonio Gibson's one of the more difficult players to rank going into next season. Josh, where is Antonio Gibson for you? Is he a top 5 guy, a top 12 guy, a top 20 guy?
Going into next season, I'm probably not going to have a lot of Antonio Gibson. What I've seen this season, I expected more from the Washington football team. And I feel like every year we can expect a little bit more, and they just always underperform. I think there's some ownership management issues with the Washington football team, right?
You think?
What?
I know.
Shocker.
So going into next season,
Surprise.
he's a top 20 running back for sure. He could easily be a top 15 running back, but I'm not going to be drafting him there. So he's probably more of a top 20 running back when it comes down to it for me.
JL, what about you? Do you agree with Josh? Do you have him a little higher?
No, I think top 15 is appropriate. The volume they were giving him when healthy it's been very promising. And so that tells me that they have confidence in Antonio Gibson. I almost said Antonio Brown. But yeah, Antonio Gibson, the volume he's been getting, he's looked good with that volume. As long as he can stay healthy next season, top 15, I think is perfect.
Guys, I think he's a top 10 running back for me next year. This season, he's top 12 in PPR leagues. That's standard. Let me pull it up. But he's having a good season already. Antonio Gibson is top 10 in PPR leagues this season based on what's happened. And he's had stretches of disappearing.
Henry, there's so many people that are hurt that are going to be coming back.
But there's also Cordero Patterson, James Conner ahead of him. These guys that had injuries around them or took on roles we didn't expect. I'm saying I view Antonio Gibson, like while you can say the things about him or the players behind him, there's also players ahead of him that won't perform that same way. And I'm expecting more of the role that we saw with 20-plus touches. So he's still a top 10 guy for me. And I honestly feel like that's a little bit low. I think you could put him up near the top 5.
Let me ask you this, Simon. Would you be comfortable with Antonio Gibson as your running back 1 next year?
Yeah, I think he's got less safety than some of these other guys, but I think he could be your RB1.
For me, I'm more in line with Josh and JL. I think he's definitely got that potential, that top 10 potential, but I feel like you're really drafting him at his ceiling there. I don't see him ever being a top 5 guy. I think the max for him is going to be, 7, 8, something along those lines.
Man,
I think drafting him as a top 15 option, more of a high end RB2.
Are we drafting him ahead of Ezekiel Elliott?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think I would at this point.
I don't know.
But I would be much more comfortable with him as my running back 2 than having to rely on him as my running back 1.
Yeah, guys, I think this will be we'll continue this discussion throughout the offseason. Gibson's going to be one of the more interesting ones to talk about. But we're going to move on to our next game. Before we do that, we have a couple questions. Mr. Scampers, a reminder to everyone, I know it's championship week. Maybe you've got some questions you need to help you win that title. Throw them in the chat. We'll be glad to answer them. Mr. Scamper said half PPR up 12 going against Aaron Jones. He needs 2 of Jefferson, Deontay, and Dillon. I'm going Jefferson and Deontay and benching AJ Dillon for me. Josh, I see you nodding. Do you agree?
Exactly. Right with you.
Jay, would either of you guys be starting AJ Dillon or are you starting Jefferson and Deontay?
Yeah, Jefferson and Deontay.
It's Jefferson and Deontay. Yep.
Also, Nigel in here said, I can't believe I'm going to lose with Jamar Chase on my team. My opponent has Satan Brown, Metcalf, and Rashad Penny. I'm down by exactly 4 points. He has Deontay Johnson tomorrow in half PPR. Truly need a miracle. Or I think he's up by exactly 4. And he has Deontay Johnson tomorrow.
I don't love it. I'm going to be honest.
Never say never.
Never say never. Guys, we're going to move on to our next game. It is the Los Angeles Rams versus the Baltimore Ravens. The Rams won this one 20-19 against the Tyler Huntley-led Baltimore Ravens.
Yes, this was a crushing defeat for our Ravens, Josh. Tyler Huntley filling in for Lamar Jackson. The over
We're winning all game.
I know we were ahead all game. Matthew Stafford, while he turned it over 3 times this game, again, another week with a lot of turnovers. He pulled it together. He came back. He had a fourth quarter rally and came back, and they won this game. The over-under on this is 46. The Rams were favored by -7. 7 points. Favored by 7 points. So Ravens definitely covered the spread on this one. Nice. That was like a little one, little baby one. Matthew Stafford, like I said, lots of turnovers today. Pretty average fantasy performance. But Sony Michelle, who's filling in for Darrell Henderson, had a really good game. 19 attempts for 74 yards and a touchdown. as well as 3 receptions of 5 targets, 25 yards. Start here. Where do you guys see Sony Michelle? What kind of value does Sony Michelle have going into next season? Darrell Henderson will likely be back. Cam Akers will most definitely be back. What do we do with Sony Michelle? Josh, why don't we start with you?
I'm not going to be drafting him next season if Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson are healthy and Sony Michelle's still in the Rams. In my mind, he's at best the second best running back there. Where I think Darrell Henderson still has a lot of pass catching ability. Cam Akers, I don't know. I think their plan was to have him as the starting running back coming into the season. I don't think a ton has changed. I know the Achilles injury is a little scary, but it's so awesome that we got to see Deontay Foreman have this kind of season, come back from that Achilles injury and actually look pretty decent, right? Right. I that gives me a lot more confidence in Cam Akers. So am I going to be drafting a lot of backup running backs for teams, especially Sony Michelle, who doesn't catch passes? Probably not. I'm pretty hands-off on Sony Michelle.
Well, Michelle is actually an unrestricted free agent going into this upcoming season, so I just looked it up. Yep. So he is 26 years old. He's getting up there in age, but I think it depends. If he wants with the
Falcons, maybe.
It depends on if his draft stock goes up and he's getting drafted like Mike Davis was this year at his ceiling. I'm not going to touch him, but. If he signs where he could have some touches and you get a decent value on him, I think he's fine. He's not somebody I'm actively going to be trying to put on my teams, but just like anything else, it all depends on the value.
I'm just trying to look through the teams I'd be excited if he signed with. And
what about
Falcons,
Miami?
I guess. Yeah, Miami crossed my mind, but then I don't know. I wouldn't be that excited. I'd be more excited with the Falcons, believe it or not.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Weird.
I'm with you, Josh. I agree.
And then Cooper Kupp, he had 6 receptions on 7 targets, 95 yards, and a touchdown. Just doing what he does all season. Josh, I want to ask you because I kind of know the answer to this question for you. So I kind of want to start this conversation. Where are you drafting Cooper Kupp next season? How high? How high?
My number 1 wide receiver.
Number 1 wide receiver for 2022.
Absolutely. You can make an argument for Devontae Adams, maybe Tyreek Hill, maybe Justin Jefferson. I don't think you could even do it for Jamar Chase.
Is he in a tier of his own?
No. I'll still put him in a tier with Devontae Adams solely. No. If he's not with Aaron Rodgers, if Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams come back for the Packers, I'll put him in a tier with Devontae Adams. If not, I am putting Cooper Kupp in a tier by himself.
Also, we did have this from Bam earlier coming in saying, told you so, JL and Josh. Aaron Rodgers and our front office relationship has improved significantly and are working to bring him back this offseason per multiple sources.
Said it was a possibility. We said it was a possibility.
Definitely a possibility. Sure. I still think it's a coin flip, to be honest with you.
But I think before both sides of the coin said screw the Packers, and now only one side says it. They've erased one side of the coin to say, yeah, maybe.
50% from 0% is a big jump.
Yeah. So moving on. So OBJ had a great game. He had a touchdown as well. And Van Jefferson, I don't think there's much to talk about there. Moving over to the Baltimore side of the ball, Tyler Huntley was filling in for Lamar Jackson, and he didn't have quite as good a game as he did the week that Simon Wishy played him. Was that 2 weeks ago?
Not quite.
You mean the game where I lost and I would have been in the Scott Fish Bowl finals if I would have played Tyler Huntley over Nick Mullins that week? Yeah. Oh, I completely forgot about that.
Oh, did you? Yeah, he started Nick Mullins.
Yeah.
Ew.
Yep. Yeah, not so good.
I was trying to will it into existence.
And much disappointment, Marquis Brown not have a great game. 3 receptions and 8 targets, 28 yards, fumble. Rashad Bateman led this team's receiving with 7 receptions on 10 targets and 58 yards. So last question I have for you guys. Where are you drafting Marquis Brown and Rashad Bateman going into next season? Can you trust either of these guys? Rashad Bateman, this is his rookie season, and he's looked good when he plays. Marquise Brown, this has been a breakout season for him. He's been great value in fantasy. Where are you confident in drafting both of these guys next year?
Like, what do you mean where? Like, are you asking for rounds?
Yeah.
Or like
what round or what? Yeah. What number wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2?
Bateman for me is nothing more than a late round flyer at this point. We haven't seen it consistently, I'm thinking from like a redraft type of aspect, but we haven't seen it consistently. Mark Andrews is the number 1 option. Marquise Brown is, probably the 1A option for Lamar Jackson. Hopefully, the way that this season finished off for Marquise Brown, he was so hot at the beginning of the season, but cooled off a little bit. It's cooled off. He's the type of player that I like to draft I'm a running back early and often guy. Then I like to hit wide receiver in the middle rounds, guys that can make that big jump. So he's somebody who I will be targeting in the middle rounds. I would be fine with him as like my wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, somebody who should put up decently consistent numbers and has the ability to make that jump like Cooper Kupp did this year.
What about you, Simon?
Like Cooper Kupp.
Like Cooper Kupp.
Hey,
I don't think he's making a Cooper Kupp style jump, but I'll value Marquis Brown as
nobody said that about Cooper Kupp at the beginning of the season either. So
I value him as a very solid.
Get Matthew Stafford in here, and maybe.
I think Cooper Kupp's going to make a Cooper Kupp like jump this year. I just feel it. I feel it.
Yeah, never mind. Sorry, you guys said everything. Cooper Kupp style jump for Marquis Brown. No, just kidding. He's a wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside on every single week, and that's how I view Marquis Brown. It's going to be you're going to get games like this where he disappears with how this offense can run, but he's worth that shot. He's probably in the 12 to 15 range.
Yeah, I think that's right where I have him, especially Lamar coming back. You know, he won't be out next season.
I think a bit of this downturn is because Lamar hasn't been playing. I've said this in the past. Lamar and Marquis Brown are like best friends. We didn't see much of Rashad Bateman until Tyler Huntley was the starter, actually, where they have more of that connection. If Lamar's the starter next year, and he will be, I'm gonna have Marquis Brown probably around 15 wide receiver. Yeah.
Yep.
Guys, before we move on to our next game, we got some people in the chat. Patrick in here says, I'm up 25 points with Devontae Adams and Deontay Johnson versus Rodgers and Aaron Jones. How safe should I feel? You're up 25 with Devontae Adams and Deontay Johnson. I'd feel pretty good, man. I'd feel it's not guaranteed. Anything can happen, but barring like an injury to one of those guys in the first quarter of the game, I would feel pretty good. Josh, you're a percentage guy. Where are you going here?
Yeah, I mean, like, let's take Deontay Johnson versus Aaron Jones. I'm canceling those guys out. Let's take Devontae Adams versus Aaron Rodgers. Maybe slightly Aaron Rodgers, but that's really close as well. And you got 25 points on him. I'm giving you an 81% chance of winning this game, Patrick. You're good. In my opinion, I like this a lot.
That's 25-point cushion.
Yeah, I think we're all going to agree on that one. That 25-point cushion helping you out. Now, this one is tough, guys. I was looking at this one. This one hurts a little bit. So Nick here has Justin Jefferson, and his opponent has Deontay Johnson and Crosby, the kicker for the Packers. He's up by 5, half PPR. Is he winning? So Jefferson plus 5 points, or Deontay Johnson and Mason Crosby, half PPR. So
if Kirk Cousins was playing, man, yeah, I'd
now
feel a lot
what
better.
I will say, Kirk Cousins is not playing, but Jair Alexander is also out. The Browns' pass defense, even with Jair Alexander in, has been a little bit better at guarding fantasy wide receivers so far this year, which is a knock on Deontay. This one's crazy close. If I had to bet on a side, I'd bet on your side, Nick. I'll bet on your side, but it's so close. I'd give you an exactly 50.1% chance of winning this. Josh, where are you going here?
I'm going to give you a 54% chance of winning this. I like your side, but it's close.
Jay,
I don't like your side at all. The only way I see Justin Jefferson having a solid game is if the Packers get up big and there's a lot of garbage time. I'm going to give you a 25% chance. I hope you win, but I don't have. I
think they're going to create ways to get the ball in Justin Jefferson's hand. I'm not saying he's going to. You got to lower your expectations, though.
Yeah, JL, what about you? Who do you think
slightly
wins?
less than 50, so maybe like 48% chance.
Okay,
this is very, very close. I would just give the edge to Deontay and Crosby here.
Also, Mr. Scamper saying Michelle to the Jags would be interesting. His draft value would be super low. I think it'd be similar. It'd be similar to the Rams with Robinson and ETN there as well.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it's a worse offense, you know.
And it's a worse offense, way worse.
It'll be the third string in my mind.
Yeah, I'm with you guys.
Depends how long
there.
Robinson's out. What his value?
Yeah, Robinson's not going to start the year next year. You know,
guys, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next game. It is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the New York Jets. The Bucs pulled this one out without Antonio Brown for the vast majority of the game.
Take my shirt off and just leave. Is that what we're saying? You don't want
100%.
What the hell, Antonio Brown? But I don't think anyone saw the Jets keeping this game so close the entire game, including the sports books, including me. I mean, so Tampa Bay came into this game as 14.5-point favorites. So the New York Jets were 14.5-point underdogs. The total was a 48 point over under. And it hit the over, obviously. Tampa Bay, on the Tampa Bay side of the ball, Antonio Brown, like what? Well, so in case you haven't heard, he just decided to take off all his shirt and throw it in the crowd, his gloves, and he just left. And Bruce Arians said that Brown is no longer on the team.
Yep.
He's gone.
Cut him.
Antonio Brown.
He gone.
No one's signing Antonio Brown this year, in my opinion. Maybe next year, but man, there's something going on there.
Man, if I ever quit a job again, I'm doing it that way though. I'm taking my shirt off, throwing it into a meeting room, and
quit every time.
out. I'm just and I'll throw up deuces on my way out. That's how I'm gonna do it.
I saw a thing. He was so close to so many incentives in his contract. Like he could have hit them next week or this week or next week.
Yep. It was like 7 catches,
hundreds of thousands more
one
dollars.
touchdown. It was basically $1 million. It was 3 different incentives. Yeah. It was catches, yardage, and touchdowns. Like he would have got it.
He needed like 1 or 2 more touchdowns. A couple, it's like 7 more catches. Like it was crazy. But best of luck to you, Antonio Brown, in the future. Ronald Jones, he suffered an ankle injury and didn't return to the game. No running backs were really relevant on the Bucs side of the ball. You were probably pretty disappointed if you started Ronald Jones, against this weak Jets defense.
Yeah.
Tom Brady, he continues to impress, though. This man is 44 years old, and you can make an argument that he's still the best quarterback to have on your team in the league, right? Is Tom Brady, I want to ask you guys a question. Is Tom Brady a top 5 drafted quarterback going into next season? Let's use some quarterbacks that I think deserve to be in this conversation. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray. Is Tom Brady a top 5 quarterback? Right now, I'm going to tell you yes. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. That's kind of where the list ends for me.
Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, Tom Brady.
I mean, it hasn't been like that this season.
And let me tell you why. Jay said it before the show started. So Jay, if you want to take over,
you mean the number 2 quarterback on the week? What you're about to say? You mean the number 2 quarterback in the week?
Josh, that is one game. That is one game against the New York Jets. So if you want to take that and extrapolate across a full season, that's fine. But whenever I do analysis, I try to look at a macro scale instead of a micro scale. So
you mean the number 3 quarterback on the season without Antonio Brown most of the season?
Aaron Rodgers will be playing without Antonio Brown and possibly without Chris Godwin next season. That leaves Mike Evans.
Definitely Aaron Rodgers won't be.
Sorry, I meant Tom Brady. So Tom Brady. So that's enough for me to knock him down to number 7. We've seen disappointing weeks from him this year. We've seen weeks where this offense kind of stalled, and without that elite receiving core, I'm going to knock him down, and that's not a bad thing. The 6 quarterbacks I had ahead of him are incredible, right? Like Dak's the one question mark. I could debate. The big
problem I have with what you're saying.
I agree with you. That's the most questionable one. But the other 5, I think it'd be ridiculous for you to tell me I'm ridiculous for having Kyler Murray or Justin Herbert.
You're ridiculous. I agree with you, but I just wanted to say that.
I'm fine with that. Dak, I have a problem with, but I'm fine with the others.
And I don't like to give JL compliments that often, but he was one of the people who was banging the table loudest for Tom Brady coming into the season being a top 5 quarterback. So
thank you.
Kudos to you, JL. So
I was high on Tom Brady, but I think JL was probably a little higher.
No, he specifically said top 5, so I got to give him credit there. But I'm with Simon. He's more of 7, 8-ish. It just unless they bring in another wide receiver, Antonio Brown's probably gone. If they re-sign Chris Godwin, I would feel a lot more comfortable saying that. But just with all the question marks, I can't put him in the top 5 right now. I still think I wouldn't, even with Chris Godwin. I think that the 5 that Simon said are in some order my top 5.
Take Dak out of it, the other 5.
The reason I wouldn't put Tom in the top 5, I have him just outside the top 5 going next season, is because of the touchdown rate. Because the Tampa Bay lead all teams in passing touchdowns, and his touchdown rate is extremely high. He doesn't have that rushing floor that a lot of these guys do, that upside. And I think that some of these guys will bounce back. I think it was a little bit more of a weirder year. The reason why is I still think Tom Brady can do that next year. I still think he can throw a lot of touchdowns next season, but I think some of these other guys are going to probably edge him out of the top 5.
I'm just talking about being drafted.
Yeah.
I won't draft him as a top 5 guy, but he's right on the outside peeking into that top 5. Like, hey guys, let me in. You mean I have to rush for 100 yards in a season to get in this room? That's what he's saying out there.
Doing that creepy face from the Tony Dungy.
Again, the number 3 quarterback this season.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing with you about that.
Simon
you got.
No. But I'm sorry. I forgot that there's a Jet side of the ball here in this equation.
You have nothing to be sorry about.
Well, are we going to mention before we move on? Albert said Rojo, the biggest bust of the day.
Yeah,
we did mention him.
Oops,
the only reason I hesitate to call him a bust is an injury. If he was in there the whole game and didn't play well, I just feel, but all things considered, but the injury is what caused it.
Yeah. Also, we have a question here, guys. I'm trying to hit the questions about championship week before we go further, just because this is for all the marbles. I'm guessing AJ Dillon or MVS tonight. JL, what do you think? I tricked you, didn't I?
I'm gonna go with AJ Dillon. When it's close between a running back and a wide receiver in a flex position, I'm gonna tend towards the running back, because I feel like those points are a little safer, and especially in this matchup, I like the matchup for both guys, but I'm gonna go with AJ Dillon.
I'm with you, JL. That's why I wish we got a little bit more information. Are you down 10? Are you up 10? Do you need 10 points? Do you need 30 points? If you need 10 points, I'm going AJ Dillon, no questions asked. If you need 30 points, I'm plugging Scantling in and crossing my fingers and hoping for a crazy game. Jay, what about you?
Said it perfect. It's the classic safety versus upside play. If you need the safety play, go with Dillon. If you need the upside, go MVS.
Josh?
Yeah. And I mean, if it's even like 20 points, I'll go MVS if you need 20 points. I'm going to lean more than 10, MVS regardless. Yeah. I'm going to lean MVS regardless myself.
Josh, it seems like you're feeling pretty good about MVS.
Say it. I think we're all thinking PPR with that. It wasn't specified, but just to clarify that.
I think MVS has a good week. I do.
Yeah. And Mr. Scamper's in here saying injuries aren't busts. Yeah, I do agree with you. An injury, you can't really qualify as a bust. It hurts your fantasy team, but it's not them underperforming. And Jay said that as well. Sorry, onto the Jets side of the ball.
On the Jets side of the ball, Braxton Berrios, he killed it. Michael Carter, he got knocked out of the game with a concussion. That was really disappointing. If you started Michael Carter, I'm sure a lot of people were. Tyler Johnson had a pretty good game. Yeah, he had one really great play that was awesome. Elijah Moore didn't play. I think we have to keep that in mind in terms of Braxton Berrios, because Braxton Berrios has looked good the last few weeks, but Elijah Moore, I think, he is the number one wide receiver. There's no question. So next season, Elijah Moore, in terms of rookie wide receivers, there's Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, then Elijah Moore for me, right? So, I don't want to spend too much time on here. We can move on.
We'll move on to our next game. The next game we're going to be talking about is the Las Vegas Raiders versus the Indianapolis Colts. The Raiders came out on top 23-20.
Yeah, and Derek Carr played okay, from a real life perspective. They won the game, which is most important to them. But fantasy, you were disappointed. 255 yards, touchdown, 2 picks. He started off the season so hot. There was even some talk for MVP considerations, but here recently, I don't know if it's Darren Waller going down, losing the deep threat with Henry Ruggs, but he's just really ended the season on a whimper. But who hasn't ended the season on a whimper is JL. I will give you credit again today.
You're right. I haven't. I've had a great end of season. Thank you.
Hunter Renfrow has just continued. Yeah, I don't know. It's just some guy. I read his name. Okay. I don't know. 7 catches, 76 yards. 9 targets, another touchdown. It is I believe his 3rd game on the season that he finished with over 20 points. I lost my notes. Let me see if I can find those. Let's see.
In a PPR, a full point PPR.
Yes, PPR, 3rd game over 20 points. 8th game this season over 15 points in a PPR format.
Wide receiver 7 on the week.
A lot went right for him this season. Ruggs was released. Darren Waller was injured. He was pretty much the last man standing, the receiving game of this offense. So from a dynasty perspective, is Hunter Renfrow a buy, a sell, or a hold going into this offseason? And Josh,
sell his ass. Sell it.
No, not just his ass, him.
Did you ask me first? I'm sorry.
I did, yes.
The gun. Okay,
That's
cool.
All right.
I think he's a sell. No Darren Waller, no really significant weapons around him. I don't even have a ton of faith in Derek Carr. If you can get top 20 wide receiver value in a dynasty league for Hunter Renfrow, I'm about it. I'm not saying he's a must-though. I think he's a good player. He's a very talented player. I'm not trying to crap on him. I'm just saying. I brought this up. I kind of compared him to Brandon Ayuk from last season. He's the last man standing more or less, and Brandon Ayuk's been fine this season, right? But not where you drafted him. You weren't happy with it. So Hunter Renfrow, I think he's a little bit more of a sell.
I view him as a hold because I don't expect the best season out of him next year. But Darren Waller is 29 years old. He's getting older in age.
He's a whole person.
But I view him as a hold because I think next year, like if you have him on your team, he's a hold because I think next year he's going to be a buy. This is a player that I see finding success long-term in the NFL. He's one of the best route runners there is in the NFL. He's fun to watch, and that's not a skill that depreciates with age the kind of way that speed does, right? So I think he's a very valuable dynasty asset. But that being said, next year, if Waller's healthy all season, I think you can expect a much milder version of Renfrow. But Waller's getting up there in age. Hunter Renfrow's still pretty young. He's a wide receiver that you want on your team. I'm holding and waiting for that buy window next year for Hunter Renfrow. If I don't have him on my team next year, I'm going to be sending out offers like crazy because I expect
I'm somewhere between these two guys. I do think that Hunter Renfrow is just talented. He's talented. He's going to be successful. He's going to provide you great fantasy performances going forward. But if you can get him at a top, like Josh said, a top 20 wide receiver price, or if you could sell him at a top, absolutely do that because the circumstance will change. There will be less volume for him that talent won't be able to necessarily overcome.
Yeah. And I'm right on board with you guys. And Simon, I think you're pretty much saying the same. If you can get the right value for him, he's a sell, but not somebody necessarily looking to sell. Yep. Yeah, if you can get top 20 value, top 15 value, by all means, do that as fast as you can. I'm with you guys on that one. Josh Jacobs pretty much did what he's done all season. Pretty mediocre, 63 yards and a touchdown. You know, if he's your RB2,
that's the epitome of Josh Jacobs, right?
4 catches, 17 yards. Like he had a solid game. Yeah. Like it wasn't anything to write home about, but you know, what was expected of Josh Jacobs coming into the NFL, you definitely have to be disappointed. But as RB2, he's fine. You know, nothing too special. On the Colts side of the ball, Carson Wentz, mediocre game, a typical Carson Wentz game as well. 148 yards and a touchdown. Jonathan Taylor, 20 rushes, 108 yards and a touchdown. He also caught a ball for 6 yards. I'm just going to ask the question that everybody's going to be asking all offseason. Is Jonathan Taylor the RB1 in Dynasty? Josh.
Absolutely.
You're not Josh.
No doubt. Move on.
Is there anybody else in consideration?
Najee Harris, DeAndre Swift, Christian McCaffrey, but no. He's in a tier of his own.
You still have CMC up there?
I do.
You could. I'm just saying, like, I think the perception is he's up there. Jonathan Taylor's in a tier of his own for me.
A complete tier of his own. I'm more in line with Josh. I think Jonathan Taylor's in a tier of his own for Dynasty. I'll put him up there as well.
Yep, yeah. I'm with you guys as well. Michael Pittman had an okay game, 6 catches, 47 yards, double digits. He's another one that started the season off hot, but kind of faded down the stretch. But, you know, when Carson Wentz is only completing 16 pants a year.
That's a lot of pants.
That is so many pants.
He completed
that's like a pants like a game almost, so that makes sense.
That's true.
You're right.
Seems wasteful, though.
I don't know. I
they're rich
pretty
people.
Quickly as well.
Yeah, I have 2 pairs of pants.
Yeah, they can afford it.
It was a pretty uneventful fantasy game. That's pretty much all that there is on this one.
He said pants per game.
Pants per game, guys. And speaking of pants per game, pants per game, PPG. Guys, we are going to move on to our next game, which is the Miami Dolphins versus the Tennessee Titans. A real close game here, but the Titans fighting for first in the conference. Miami Dolphins fighting to stay alive for the playoffs, and the Titans were the only one that won that fight today. The Dolphins couldn't get much going. On the Dolphins side of this ball, you were disappointed if you started anyone. I'm sorry for everyone that I said you could have confidence starting Tua this week. It did not pan out. And because of that, you couldn't. Jalen Waddle, Devontae Parker, all of the receiving options here struggled pretty heavily with the way this offense struggled. Anything you guys have to add on the Miami side of this ball?
Disappointing.
Yeah.
Disappointing. I don't think there's too much else to be said right there.
I think it's a knock towards the Titans for looking towards the playoffs if they get Derrick Henry back. Just being able to score 34 points against this great Miami defense.
Yeah, this Miami defense that's been performing very well recently, right? This Miami defense has been killing it over the second half of the season.
Yeah, the number 3 defense, I think, what I'm looking at on the year.
And Mr. Scampers wants to know, do 16 pants have 16 or 32 leg holes?
64.
32.
32.
32.
60.
48. There's a third leg.
16 pairs of pants.
Simon, this is a family show.
I did not even mean it like that, Jay. You're the one who just turned this into a family show.
They're unipants, then only 16.
Only 16 unipants, as we all like to wear. The Tennessee Titans, though, Deonta Foreman had himself a game, 26 carries, 132 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Can you imagine the fantasy lineups that are going to win championships this week with Deonta Foreman, Rashad Penny, Jarrett Patterson, Boston Scott?
You're literally naming a lineup in my fantasy champion.
That's absolutely nuts.
The top three running backs this week were Rashad Penny, Darrell Williams, and Boston Scott.
I didn't know.
But Deonta Foreman was the focal point of this offense this week. They only threw 18 passes. And Ryan Tannehill, with what he did very well. But he only completed 13 passes for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns.
He didn't screw up.
He didn't screw up. And that's the problem with Ryan Tannehill. He's a talented quarterback, but this is a team that wants to run the ball first. And if they can, they're going to. Sometimes they haven't been able to this season with Derrick Henry out. Today they were able to. Derrick Henry's expected back next year. Or not just next year, right? He's expected back for the playoffs, but
they said he could come back next week. I think it's kind of dumb. But.
What do you guys think? We were talking about the best teams earlier. Do you think the Tennessee Titans, with a healthy Derrick Henry, Jay, you were the highest on them, it sounded like. Do you think they have a chance of coming out on top in this conference in the playoffs?
Yeah, I really do. They've already, they beat the Chiefs at the beginning of the season. You could say Julio Jones is hurt, but he hasn't done much of anything this season. AJ Brown's back. They've got Foreman and Hilliard, who can spell.
Mr. Scammers, and nothing of what I should say
that
should
made
be
me
acknowledged.
chuckle.
You have that in common with all of us.
Yeah, you're watching the perfect show.
Don't tell them.
I could see them winning the Super Bowl. I really could.
That's crazy, but I can't disagree with you, right? I think you're right, but this team, whenever it's clicking, looks really good. There's not much else to talk about on this game. AJ Brown disappointing. So if you started him, you're sad, but you lowered expectations for AJ Brown. And you know what? He didn't even meet those lowered expectations, but that's okay. We're going to move on to our next game. The next game is the Atlanta Falcons at the Buffalo Bills.
Buffalo Bills.
Buffalo Bills.
This was a fun game. It was snowy. It was very snowy. Buffalo got off to a hot start with Buffalo, scored 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. And then nothing in the second quarter.
Falcons got a safety to start with the game.
Falcons started off the game, with a safety, and then 2, I believe, a score in the second, and they followed up. They were on top at halftime. So this is a fun game. I don't think anyone was expecting that. They're expecting Bills domination here.
Yeah.
The Bills did come out on top, 29-15 to the Falcons, but it's an interesting game. It was an interesting game. Let me pull up the stats here. Did not have them ready. Matt Ryan, a little bit disappointing. I don't even know if it's disappointing at this point. I feel like it's just expected out of him.
I'm disappointed in you for putting him as your starter in championship week. How about that? Not you, JL.
Me. Okay. I was gonna say,
whoever did so,
I saw JL going through all of his rosters.
I was like thinking of all my leagues, oh no, I didn't set many of them. Oh no. Mike Davis, he was the top runner on this team. Does not matter. Cordero Patterson, pretty disappointing. 9 attempts, 28 yards. 2 receptions on 2 targets, 24 yards. God, what's going on with Cordero Patterson, guys? Why?
It's a punishment. It's a punishment for 0 RB fantasy managers, is what Cordero Patterson has been this season.
Because you were taking credit for it. Because you were taking credit for it too early.
He got you all the way to the playoffs, and then he said, "Here's a stab in the stomach. Here's a stab in the stomach. Here's a stab in the stomach." But no, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Cordero Patterson and why they stopped using him so much. But there's been a clear change in how they use him in this offense the past couple weeks, and it's bad. It's bad for fantasy managers. It's bad for Cordero Patterson. It seems to be bad for the Falcons. But I don't know. It's ridiculous to me.
The Falcons knew they weren't doing anything in the playoffs 3 weeks ago. They said they were going to limit Cordero Patterson's workload, and that's exactly what they did. I think they want him for next season.
Do you think they bring someone in? Or you think they're going to?
Yeah, they're going to bring a lot of people in. But Cordero Patterson will be on the Falcons next year, and I think will be good for fantasy.
Okay.
Do you think there's a world where he's more of like a Nyheim Hines next year, where he comes in relief duties instead of this main guy?
I think there absolutely is a world. I think he'll be more involved in the passing game next season than he has been the last 3 weeks.
Gotcha.
More of what we saw earlier in the season.
So that brings up an interesting question. Where are you confident or comfortable drafting Cordero Patterson then going into next season, assuming that's how it plays out, that he's still on the roster?
Josh's face says it all.
100%. Are you waiting like round 10? Like
can you still play him at running back and wide receiver in most leagues?
Some platforms, I think.
Yeah, I know ESPN doesn't allow it, but like Sleeper does allow it. I'm not going to be drafting him too high, but again, he's probably going to be a really good value that you can get. And if he can play both positions, then I'll probably end up with him in some leagues.
I'll probably draft him around. No, it's good. Never mind. I take back everything I was about to say. I'm entirely torn on this. It's going to be after Kareem Hunt because I imagine him playing the Kareem Hunt role to a smaller extent in a different offense. He's going to be the second back in that offense. I just can't imagine the world where he's the first back again next year. Who's going to have big games? He's going to have huge games like Kareem Hunt does. But again, I think he'll be used less than Kareem Hunt is in the rushing game. He's going to be Kareem Hunt who rushes a little bit less. I think is what we're going to get out of Cordero Patterson. So it's going to be probably about a round after Kareem Hunt is where I'll draft Cordero Patterson.
And I don't think you'll be able to get him that late. I think people are going to see what he did this season.
You're probably right.
I don't see myself having much Cordero Patterson next year. I think his draft capital is going to be too much.
It's going to be a fun conversation that we have.
Yeah, it will be a lot of fun talking about it.
Yeah, all offseason. Russell Gage, he had 3 receptions for 5 targets, 50 yards. Also disappointing. The main guy on this team, though, with no Calvin Ridley. How are you guys feeling about Russell Gage going into this offseason?
I don't feel him. I'm not feeling it.
Nothing.
We're not feeling each other. Russell Gage and I, we split up, and going into next season, hopefully Calvin Ridley's back. Get Russell Gage out of here.
All right. Well, we'll move on to the Buffalo side of this ball. Josh Allen had a pretty good game. 11 completions on 26 attempts, 120 yards, 3 interceptions, 15 rushing attempts, 81 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Saved his day. It was a snowy game, so keep that in mind. Devin Singletary, he's pretty interesting. 23 rushing attempts for 110 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. And I wanted to bring this up. Yeah, Mr. Scamper, thoughts on Singletary long term. How do you guys feel about Singletary going into next season? It seems like he's the guy over Zach Moss. The Bills are trusting him. Are you higher on Singletary now after this second half of the season surge?
I'll draft him well over Cordero Patterson.
Also, just a note, FanDuel coming in here reminding us Patterson is a free agent this offseason.
Yeah.
Just the fact that they limited his workload, they were trying to keep him healthy. I really believe he's back.
Yeah.
Really.
I think so as well. And I could see him going back there because they're finally the team to unlock, the way that he's able to be used. So
it's the first team to be able to do it, right? So I don't, from both perspectives, I don't see why not,
In terms of Singletary, trust isn't necessarily the word that I'm looking for. I do like him a little better going into next season, but they already had him on this team. Then they drafted Zach Moss. Then they signed Matt Breida. So Josh Allen is always going to be the running back 1 on this team. I wouldn't mind him as, like a RB3, RB4, getting him late in drafts type of thing. But I'm a little more confident, but I definitely don't trust this usage.
I view him kind of how people viewed Ronald Jones going into this season. Like this guy that we expect to be the starter, but there's a lot of uncertainty around whether he's actually going to have the starting role, whether he's going to keep it, whether there's going to be that level of success on a high-powered offense. So the upside is there, right? Like we've got that upside of the offense, but I'll probably draft him similar, like 7th, 8th round as this guy that's a backup for my starting running backs, or on a 0 RB team, a guy that's just getting volume that I can plug in.
He actually probably seems like more like Leonard Fournette to me. Just like at end of the season, he turned it on. He looked like the guy, I think he's going to be the guy going to next season. I'm pretty confident.
You're pretty confident.
I'm definitely, it sounds like I'm more confident than you guys.
Yeah, I think a little bit. Guys, before we talk about this game more, we got a question from that guy, Kevin. He says, up by 21. That guy, Kevin. Oh, God, can you believe that guy?
I feel great about this, Kevin.
He said, up by 21. It's my Deontay versus his Najee. Thoughts? I'm with Josh.
90% chance.
So Najee would have to outscore Deontay Johnson by 21 points. Yeah. I'll take your side all day. That's not saying it's impossible. Najee, we've seen crazy games, but you've got a really, really
99.9. I'm going to go throw a percentage out there. You would need a miracle the other guy would need a miracle to.
If your opponent wins, it'll be one of those stories they tell for the rest of the offseason.
Yes. I think Deontay outscores Najee. I don't think by much. It's pretty close, but
if it was just Deontay versus Najee, I'd take Najee, but it's close. So there you go.
Okay, guys, we are going to be moving on to our next game. The next game we have is the last 1 p.m. game, the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the New England Patriots. And if you guys noticed, I've been nailing it with England lately. I haven't said England one time in like 3 weeks.
Man, so proud of you.
You are an amazing person, Simon.
Thank you.
This game was 50-10. The Patriots scored 50 freaking points on the Jaguars, who are only able to put together 10 points. The Jaguars came into this game as 17.5-point underdogs, and the Patriots well covered that spread. It was a 41.5-point over-under, and the Patriots did that all by themselves and more. The only person you were really confident about starting on the Jaguars side of the ball was probably Darren Waller, and he really saved your game by scoring that receiving touchdown, right? But it was pretty much very disappointing otherwise. Maybe you started Laquan Treadwell and you were okay with his production. Trevor Lawrence just didn't look good. It was a good defense.
If you did that.
If you started Laquan Treadwell in your fantasy championship,
I would be so impressed.
JL, I want to hear what you have to think about Dari
He's great. He's great.
He was fine. He was fine. I think he's probably a top 20 running back right now. So there you go. Like, he was a fine start when it came down to it.
There's almost really makes you want to sing.
Take away from this game. They won the Jaguars side of the ball when it comes down to it. Trevor Lawrence didn't look great, but the Patriots have a great defense, right? So on the Patriots side of the ball, Mac Jones did look great. The whole team looked fantastic everywhere. They looked fantastic everywhere.
Jacksonville.
Yeah, but how many teams have scored 50 points against Jacksonville? I don't think any so far.
That's true. That's quite an accomplishment.
Mac Jones continues to impress with his accuracy, completing 22 passes, 30 attempts. I think he's the most accurate rookie quarterback ever. 227 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was also the most accurate quarterback ever in college football history last season. So Mac Jones continues to impress me. Guys, I want to ask you this question. Who is the offensive rookie of the year, Jamar Chase or Mac Jones? You could mention Kyle Pitts and Jalen Waddle in this conversation, sure, but it's one of these two.
No, you can't.
You can mention it. That's
I think it's Mac Jones. I think this is one of the years where, like last season, I think it should have been Justin Jefferson, but the quarterbacks generally tend to edge out close players at other positions. This is a year where I think it should go to the quarterback, and it will go to the quarterback. Mac Jones has been really impressive with what he's been asked to do and what he's accomplished with it.
What about you, Joe? Jamar Chase or Mac Jones, offense rookie there?
It's close, but
it's really close. I think it's really freaking close. It comes down to next week. Who has the better game next week, right?
I think the tiebreaker
doesn't want to answer.
I think the tiebreaker is.
I'll probably go. I'm going to go Jamar Chase.
I'm going to go Jamar Chase as well.
That's the more fun answer.
I'm going to go Mac Jones. I think it's the whole quarterback thing.
Gentleman's bet.
Let's do it.
Okay.
I'll put it on the board. Let's go.
Oh, right. I'll put it on the board after I finish this up. So
whoever loses has to eat a bowl of buttered noodles. Or is it you winning by eating a bowl of buttered noodles?
Yeah, you mean you're going to give JL a gift? Well, JL's on my team. So JL and I are going to go with Jamar Chase. Jay and Simon are going to go with Mac Jones, offensive rookie of the year. Just to finish up with this game, Damien Harris, he hurt his hamstring.
Harris.
It was a blowout, so Ramondre Stevenson got the majority of carries. They didn't want to risk this with Damien Harris. Luckily, Harris was still able to get in the end zone twice before he came out of the game, so he was not disappointed whatsoever. Do you think there will be a clear starter for the Patriots next season, or are we going to have one of those classic Patriots running back rooms where you're nervous every week? You're like, yeah, Damien Harris had a great week last week, but the week before was Ramondre Stevenson, and I just don't know. I think it's going to be more of that, honestly. Damien Harris gets the majority.
I've always tended to stay away from the New England backfield, but I really like both of these guys. I think that as long as your expectations are that you could very easily have a dud game, they've worked really well in tandem. A flex play, a bye week replacement, I'd be all about having either one of these guys on my team, all depending on the draft capital.
You agree?
I don't think this is the same confusing Patriots backfield we've seen. That's not to say that both backs won't be used, but I think it's going to be a both backs kind of thing. Know what I mean? In the past, it's been
like a Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams.
That's exactly what the next words out of my mouth are going to be.
Okay. Gotcha.
Maybe more of a like 70-30 or a 65-35 split than what the Broncos leaning towards Damien. But I think both of these guys are going to be fantasy valuable next year. Damien Harris being slightly more fantasy valuable.
I tend to agree with you. I could see just like the Broncos this year.
Yep.
But let's move on. But yeah, if I had to choose one, it'd be Damien Harris by a decent amount. Honestly, he's impressed me. They both have been
Rhino. I don't know, man. We do love the Rhino as well.
Dynasty that's a different question. Then they're like even. I can't decide a dynasty. Next year, though, I'll go with Damian Harris.
Yeah,
guys, I think we got time to get through one more game before we jump off today. JL doesn't even want to talk about this game. He's just upset about it. He said, "There's no way I'm discussing this one." The San Francisco 49ers took down the Texans 23-7 in this matchup, led behind Trey Lance, kind of.
Well, kind of. He had a pretty solid game. 249 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. He added 31 yards on the ground. So, if you had to start him, he was solid. I think for the future, you have to be excited for what's coming with this offense. Which most people think Jimmy Garoppolo's out the door, so should be Trey Lance's team next year. We'll just go ahead and jump into it. Trey Lance is a top blank quarterback in 2022. Simon, we'll start with you.
Oh no.
If he's the starter, which we fully expect him to be, he's probably flirting with that top 12 line because of the rushing floor. It's a cheat code in fantasy football. Quarterbacks that rush like that if they're the starter for 16 games and you rush like Trey Lance does, you're like almost guaranteed to be a top 12 quarterback. So that's how I'm going to be viewing him, but it'll be in that back end of the top 12.
JL?
I'll put him in top. Top 18.
Okay.
Josh? I think he's a locked and loaded top 15 quarterback with a lot of upside.
Yeah, it's probably the right answer.
Because I'm going to take him over Tua, over Ryan Tannehill, over Derek Carr, over these guys, just because of the upside. I'm not saying at the end of the season, he's 100% going to have more fantasy points than those guys. Those guys are safer plays, but at the quarterback position, especially when you're only starting one, I'm going to shoot for the upside. And Trey Lance is probably going to keep inching towards that top 12 quarterback the more and more we hear about him being the starter for the 49ers with all these weapons too. He's got
right. And that's the thing for me. I'm really excited about him. I think he can be, I have him in the top 10 next year with all the weapons. I think Shanahan's one of the best at, scheming around players' talents with all I'm really excited for Trey Lance next year if he is the starter.
Also,
I could see him being a top 10 quarterback for me next season.
I pulled the stats off the screen. They weren't updating, so a lot of the fantasy scores were incorrect right there. So I just pulled those off so we're not confusing anybody as we talk about it.
I can see you guys so much better now.
I can see clearly now. The stats are gone.
Enjoy your win, Simon.
That was pretty good.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Other than that, Elijah Mitchell had a pretty solid game, 119 yards. It was encouraging to see after the injuries that he's been dealing with. Deebo Samuel, didn't do a ton on the ground, but he was able to catch a touchdown, 63 yards. Ayuk had a solid game. Pretty much George Kittle was the only one that was really a disappointment. 1 catch for 29 yards. He probably very easily could have helped you get to the championship, but let you down in the championship game. The only thing I really want to talk about on the Texans side of the ball is, do you guys think Davis Mills is the starter next year? And are you willing to draft him in a Superflex league if that's the case?
Yes. And yes, very late. I think he should be the starter. I think it would be silly of the Texans to go spend a ton of money when they've got so many holes on their roster instead of just seeing what they got with Dave. Like, he has shown me enough this year that if I were the Texans, I would want to see what he can do with a full season because they're not competing for a Super Bowl next year. That roster is decimated. So build up the rest of the roster, see what you got with Davis Mills. And you know what? Since he's a starting quarterback in the NFL, if he is, I'll draft him at the end of drafts as my 3rd quarterback in Superflex leagues.
I'm with you, Simon.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to really depend on what they do with the Deshaun Watson trade. If that happens, I can't imagine them going out and drafting someone. I don't know that they're going to have the picks to even do that. So I'm not even that interested.
What are they going to do? Sign
I'm
Jimmy
pretty confident Deshaun Watson's out of there.
Yeah,
I think both the team and Deshaun Watson went out.
Right. So. Yeah, but a trade could include a QB, right? A QB.
It could.
It absolutely like if it's could. Miami, something like that, you could see it.
It absolutely could. You're absolutely correct.
Guys, before we jump off today, I know Sunday Night Football has started. Everyone wants to go watch that. We've got a question here from James. Well, he's given us what he's up by and then want to know if he wins. He's up 61 points, so has a big lead in half PPR. But this is an IDP league. His opponent has Nick Chubb and then Campbell for the Packers and Fitzpatrick DB. Who's going to win this game? Josh, what do you think?
I know these
James,
like IDP
we're not IDP.
League.
We're not IDP experts.
Yeah.
So just a heads up.
I know these IDP leagues, they can have some different kind of scoring, but I can't assume that these defensive players are typically going to score more than 20 points, right? So let's put Nick Chubb at 20 points. I'm not presuming that these defensive players are going to score 20 themselves. So I think you have a great chance of winning this game. I'm putting your odds at 72% chance.
That's exactly the number I had in my mind,
Let's
Josh.
go.
I was going to say 72 right after you went on that one. Also, Mr. Scampers, and you're saying agree, Davis has been a light. RIP Tyrod. Yeah, Davis has been good, but I hope Tyrod Taylor finds a place to play next year. Guys,
at this point, it's going to be tough for him.
It's going to be tough.
To be honest.
Guys, that is going to be it for us this Sunday night. Thank you so much, everyone who joined along with us for the FanDuel Sunday night recap. We'll be back next week, same time, same place, 7 p.m. Eastern time on the FanDuel YouTube and Twitch channels. So make sure you have liked this video and subscribe to YouTube or subscribe to FanDuel on YouTube and follow them over on Twitch. We'll be back at that time. Anything else before we jump off, guys?
Trading has been fun.
And love you guys.
Happy New Year, everyone. Adios.
Bye-bye.
Peace.